So Modern Warfare Zombies. What do I think about it? What do I think could have been done better? What do I think they did great? I've decided to do a end of life cycle Modern Warfare Zombies full-blown analysis. I'd like to go into the awesome stuff, the good stuff, the bad stuff, and honestly share my opinions on everything that I feel as if they did great versus what they did bad, what they can maybe improve upon in the future. So in this video, I want to go down a little rant. Well, I guess it's not really a rant, it's more of a retrospective view on the entire game itself, because I have a lot of thoughts on it, and honestly, to be completely frank, I really liked it. But that doesn't mean it didn't have inherent flaws. So without further ado, I thought we would get into my true opinions from the entire lifespan of Modern Warfare Zombies. And to be clear, this is the entire lifespan, because the game has gone through some ups and it's gone through some downs, and it's had some great moments and it's had some really bad moments. So that's what I want to go into. So let's start with the positive. I feel like starting with the positive is always a good idea, because I have a lot of things in the positive list, and I think I have more in the positive list than I do in the negative list. But that doesn't mean the things in the negative list don't hold weight, because they are glaring issues that I think could have been solved, or at least taken care of. But to start things off, I truly think Modern Warfare Zombies was fun. I have played Zombies since World at War, and I've been a very diehard fan. I've loved playing the game. I've loved slaying zombies. I've loved doing Easter egg quests. I've loved the story from the very beginning. And I think this is the first iteration of non-round based zombies that I thoroughly enjoyed. I really liked Outbreak, not at all Vanguard, but this one I played a lot, and I put a lot of hours into it, not just for the camo grind, but for just the gameplay. I thought it was really fun. It was different, and with that difference, it caused a lot of people to not enjoy it. It caused people to get into zombies. It's all over the place, but I think it offered a very fresh take on the entire round-based system, because it's not round-based. It's still zombies, and it still has Call of Duty feel, but it's not round-based, and I thought this is the best iteration so far of a non-round-based Call of Duty Zombies game. It's different, it offers variety, and I think that's such a big positive. I still don't think it'll ever take the place of round-based. I don't think it will, nor do I want it to, because round-based is my favorite. But that does not mean this was not fun. So to start off picking it apart with positives first, I guess, I think Modern Warfare Zombies had an incredible launch. It came with so many missions to do, so many things to get, and I remember starting it and being giddy and excited because there were so many schematics to unlock, from the perks to the ammo mods to the wonder weapons to basically, the wrenches, the ether wrenches. There were just so many things to do at the very beginning that it seemed like we were going to be very well taken care of. And especially with that Act 1 mission, or I guess it was multiple acts, but when it launched, it had tons of things to do, tons of missions, tons of story-driven things to get done. And truly, I had so much fun with those story missions. And I remember trying to find the convoy for the first time and trying to raid the convoy, and I couldn't do it, and I'd have to exfil and come back in. I just liked the whole loop of the game. I liked the whole go in from really bad to really good, and then going through the story missions, doing specific things, killing manglers, or whatever the mission entailed. I thought it was a very good take, and especially with how many there were at the beginning of the launch, it definitely felt like this game is going to have tons to do. And obviously we'll talk about what happened after that, but we'll save that for the negative section, because at launch, this game had so much, and it had so much potential, and it had tons of things to do, and it offered a lot. And that's what I liked about it, because I could go in after a week and still feel like I have lots to do, because obviously I'm just a normal person, I have a job and all that kind of stuff. So it took me a long time to get through those. And on top of all that, it had this awesome camo system. I love the Borealis camo. I worked my butt off to get to it, and I finally did it. It was fun. I loved the grind, and especially the schematic grind. It took so long to get all the schematics, and I remember going contract after contract and going up to those reward rifts, super excited to see what was inside, only to get a blue wrench, and then I got to do another one. It was a fun loop, a fun idea, and a very different take, and I liked that. I think for the first few weeks, some of the best moments was that feeling of adrenaline when I'd go into the Tier 3 zone, because it really is such a step up from the Tier 2, and before I had really gotten used to the gameplay systems and I had really been settled in with my schematics, the Tier 3 area was spooky. It was terrifying, and it was fun, and that's what really gave this game some personality. That Tier 3 area was such a blast to go into for the first few times, and obviously the adrenaline that I got those first few times is gone because I'm used to it. I have the schematics. I'm a little bit more overpowered, but those first few times was so much fun, and running around and getting chased and not knowing what to do and how to get away from them. You didn't have an ether blade. You didn't have golden armor plates. It was just the very beginning. You were just weak, and it was fun, and it was anxiety inducing, and that's what really brought me back. Because in old zombies, that feeling of being scared almost, or as if you really were up against a wall and you felt as if you had to clutch up the moment to survive, just like what olden days zombies did for me on high rounds, or if I went down and I needed Jug and I was far away from Juggernog, it brought me back to those moments of pure adrenaline and like actually addicting gameplay. Because the Tier 3 zone is no joke, and I just thought that was fun. It was great. And especially in that first season with act missions and then all these things that led up to the game being fun. And it honestly was amazing. I loved the story. I think that is another huge positive for this game. The story was awesome, and I think the ending was probably one of the best endings we've had in a long, long time. That big entity boss fight, awesome. Seeing the cutscenes was great. I will say the one thing I didn't like about the story was like the military-esque starting. I didn't care about Imran Zakhaev. I literally couldn't have cared less. Soap being there was a little odd. I didn't like that stuff, but as the seasons went on and the story went on, we barely saw any of them anymore. Soap was gone. You didn't hear about Zakhaev. It was all just zombies characters that were made specifically for zombies instead of having that Modern Warfare crap bleed into it. And that's when I started to really get hooked, because that Zakhaev stuff really, I just didn't think it was very entertaining. As the seasons went on with the story, amazing. I thought it was a blast. I remember when the first trailer for Season 1 came out, and it was like that dark ether entire area. That trailer was amazing. And then seeing Mr. Peaks be one of the things that you pick up, I thought that was awesome. It got me so excited for the dark ether and the story and everything that was going into it. And I wanted to go into the dark ether. And it was the first time that we were able to really dive in since Cold War. I guess Vanguard you had it, but that kind of sucked anyway. But it was fun. It offered a new dynamic to the game, and I just remember being so excited for it. I think the side quests for every single perk, that was a genius move. I wish they would have had more, and I wish there were more things to do after they would have added in side quests. But when people started finding those Percocola side quests, I thought that was awesome. I thought they were very clever. So that was a great thing. I loved when they started adding voids and the Easter eggs started to get involved. That was a fun time, seeing those massive portals pop open, and then you know you're going into the dark ether and that adrenaline rush, the tornadoes that spawn. over the portals. It was fun. And I think if the game had more content, we would have been having an absolutely incredible year for zombies. And that's obviously going to be saved for the negative side. But the schematics were fun to grind for. To this day, I actually don't think I have the purple wrench schematic. I think I have every schematic but the purple wrench. And I have been playing, it's almost been a year, and I still don't have that schematic, which I think is funny. It's awesome, because that's obviously long-term grind right there. And yes, some would argue it's too long of a grind, but at the same time, like, it gives me the opportunity to go back and try to get it, because I still don't have it, but I think the schematics that they kept adding in were awesome. The golden armor plate was life-saving. The ether blade was awesome. It brought me back to the Hell's Retriever. I loved that, and I loved how many more contracts there were compared to Outbreak in Cold War, and there were just many things to do. I think it had one of the best starts of zombies you can get. It was fun, it was different, and I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, because it's definitely not round-based, and I totally understand that. But that doesn't mean I didn't have a lot of fun. Like, there were moments to be had that were just an absolute blast. I loved the camaraderie that you made with randoms, how you'd be sitting and you go down, you're all by yourself, you're in a solo match, so you just type into the chat like, hey, I need a revive in G7, and then all of a sudden like 10 people would show up and they'd revive you, and then they'd ask to join squads, and I just thought it was fun that there wasn't a toxic community around it. There wasn't people going in to grief you. There were people that were willing to help, or you'd get into tier 3 and they saw that you weren't as good, so they'd drop you a ray gun or something. I just thought it was really fun. And I think the take on the Mega Abomination was awesome. It was so much harder to take down than just the regular Abomination, and that's why I think Tier 3 had yet another part of it that was awesome, because it had that Mega Abomination. It was adrenaline-inducing, and trying to get sentry guns or a Juggernaut suit to go take it down. It was just fun. I think exfils were a blast. They nerfed them, but once they brought them back to a good spot, I thought it was a blast being able to just farm exfils. That's how I got a lot of my camos done. Granted, that is another thing that I will talk about in the negative section, and that is why exfils were really bad, especially with that many players on the map. But I think having that many players on the map generally was a good thing. It was fun to work together with random people and chat through them, or proximity chat with them. I think a great one was the Red Worm. That was an awesome thing that you really have a hard time doing that solo, so you contact randoms in the map and be like, hey, come do this awesome thing with me. I just thought it was fun. It had a great start and a great end. I think the middle was very rough, and honestly, I stopped playing it nearly as much as I was at the very beginning, and that's something that I honestly think leads me right into the negative. So let's get straight into the negative section, because I do have a lot, and I think they're valid criticisms, and I think a lot of people agree with these. And honestly, if they do a mode like this ever again, I think if they change some of these negatives or fix them, you can have a really solid side game mode that goes along with round-based. And I think the number one glaring issue was the post-launch support. That is the number one issue I had with Modern Warfare Zombies. After Season 1, it was done. You'd get an Easter egg and a cutscene and a few schematics, but it was every season reloaded. So it just took a while. I think if this game had more post-launch support, I think it would have been phenomenal. Something that I remember really wishing was when they were bringing back Rebirth Island. I was so hyped and excited that Rebirth was coming back, and I was convinced that we were going to be playing Rebirth Zombies. Like an outbreak had broken out on Rebirth Island, and it was just the same thing as Modern Warfare Zombies on Urzikstan, but on Rebirth Island. I think if they would have done that, that would have added so much more depth to the game, because in DMZ they added other maps which made it more replayable. And yes, Urzikstan is big, but I think it would have been awesome maybe just have the entire Rebirth Island be tier 3 and have it like a Building 21 thing. I think that would have been awesome. more maps to do things on, more maps to accomplish contracts, maybe adding way more contracts or things to do in the act missions, because the act missions were just enter the rift, save Ava, then you're done. And then you had to wait another 3-4 months just to get another thing to do. If they would have just added more side quests and things to do on those act missions, I think it would have been a lot better. And that's why I think DMZ post-launch support was better than Modern Warfare Zombies, because Building 21, you had a Sheik Island, I'm pretty sure you had Vondel, and there were so many things to do and different maps to explore, so you weren't confined to the same thing over and over, and that's what I think is the number one issue with Modern Warfare Zombies. If they would have given us more things to do in those act missions and more places to explore, we would be sitting pretty. But instead, we would just get a place from Al Mazrah with a Dark Ether sandbox and a Dark Ether skybox to it with one mission. That's it. I wish there were more things to do. And speaking of contracts, like actual contracts in the game, I think they should have added new contracts, because Outbreak got new ones, and I think new contracts would have added a little bit more flavor and depth to the game, because we had the same ones the entire year, and once you mastered them, they got old. I think the hardest ones were probably the cargo transport, not the cargo transport, but the ether tank transport that was in the tier 3 zone. I can't remember what it was called, but that was a fun contract. It was very difficult, and you really had to be skilled and be set up to get those ones done. Everything else just kind of got bland. And to be honest, going into the game now, I just go straight to tier 3 and do those contracts, because there was no variety. It's all just the same contract. It's the same contracts that existed from day one, nothing new, and that's where I think the post-launch support failed again. So again, with the post-launch support, if they just would have supported the game throughout the whole life cycle, and I get Treyarch abandoned the project and gave it to Sledgehammer to focus fully on Black Ops 6, which I think is probably the best thing that they should have done, but I just wish there was more to do. Give us more things to do so that the game has some life to it. And honestly, there were no huge innovations post-launch, and that's the problem. It was the same formula from the second it launched to the very end. And if there were new contracts, a new map, new act missions, maybe new perks, maybe new bosses, honestly, would have made this game 100 times better. Another thing is the huge times where there was nothing. You'd have literal months, and there would just be that one act mission that released. Everyone would get it done in the first day, and then in the huge difference of time, there's just nothing to do. I also experienced a lot of lagging and server issues, but I know some people didn't. Some people had it probably worse than me. I think the Modern Warfare setting was definitely off-putting. I also think they should have added new enemy types, because we just had Manglers and Mimics. That's just Cold War. Oh, I guess Disciples, but that was also Cold War. There's just nothing new. And I think Black Ops 6 is good because it has the amalgamation and the spiders and the parasites. But Modern Warfare Zombies did no innovation. And I think that is the problem. I also will say exfilling, and you're trying to farm exfils, or you're getting a bunch of zombies up, you're training them, and then a random comes in with a car and just runs them all over. That pissed me off so bad, and it would happen so many times where you're exfilling, you're setting up for this awesome exfil, you're doing the farming, and then someone just comes along and ruins it all. And then they stick with you, and you keep doing the exfil. So you just have to leave, and it was just awful. I just think it was really awesome to have that camaraderie with a bunch of people, but at the same time, so many people on the same map would grief you or just be super annoying, and it would ruin exfils or ruin training or ruin your contract, because someone would come over and just run them over with a car or the blood burner or whatever it was. And honestly, that's pretty much the negative side that I have. I think it's very important that we really take a look at the problems, and a lot of it could just be fixed. You just support the game fully, and you put a ton of devs on it, which I know Activision won't do, but you put support, you give them support, and you give us content, then honestly, Modern Warfare Zombies would be awesome. it would be something to come back to years later and play. But since you've already experienced everything, there's not that replayability factor because they just dropped the ball. So much support at launch and then just dropped it. And I think that was its downfall. I think that if they wouldn't have done that, we would have had the best iteration of non-round based zombies ever. And people would be talking about it for a while. Just give us more act missions, give us new maps, make it more saturated. And because they didn't, I think it really, really hurts the overall game as a whole. I would say at launch, Modern Warfare Zombies was like a 7.58. But at the end of its life cycle now, because there was nothing supported afterwards, probably a 5. I think it dropped down to a 5 or a 6. And it could have been up to a 9. But they just didn't care to continue with the massive high that it started on. And that's its downfall. So overall rating, I give Modern Warfare Zombies a 6. 6.5. If I'm just looking at the Act 1 and the very beginning of the game with Season 1, I'd give it an 8.5 probably. But since I have to look at the overall game, it really drops points in me. So let's give it a 6.5 out of 10, and we'll call it good. So if you enjoyed this video and this retrospective, please comment down below what you agree with, what you disagree with, what you liked, what you disliked, if you played it, if you didn't play it. Let's just have a discussion. Let me know what you guys did, and I'd love to read your comments. Give this video a like and also subscribe. And I know it's been a while, it's a long video, but I think having a good dialogue can help the community grow, and hopefully if they do something like this again, they can see our dialogue that we're having and improve upon it. So again, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.